First, I want to say a few things. We said when we started this, we talked about this all late summer into the fall of last year, and knowing that we would start it this year. And the language that we've used from the beginning is that this is an experiment. We are hoping it actually becomes a regular part, a long-term part of how we operate. But we use the word experiment because no one has ever done this before. I don't know of another church that is even close to doing something like this. And so there are no models to follow. We're learning as we go. And one of the things that's been so crucial in us knowing if we're being effective or not is all of you weighing in with surveys. That's why we push them every single time that we're together for our Up, In, Out, Rest Sundays. And many of you have taken those surveys, and the overwhelming feedback that we get is very positive, which is awesome. Now, if you feel differently, you should have put in a survey because we're going by what we get. And if your voice hasn't been a part of it, this is your church, this is your community. Your voice needed to be a part of it, and it still can be as far as these surveys go. But from what we have read from everybody that has responded faithfully, it is really, really positive. There's one area that seems to be a sticking point, and the one area is the confusion in operating on a weekly basis that changes from up, in, out, and rest. A lot of people don't know what week it is. When they show up on a Sunday morning, they're already thinking, do we have childcare? Do we not have childcare? Is this up? And what is up? And is it in? Is it out? And did I register for that class? And it's just too much to remember for a lot of people. And I think I would feel the exact same way if I wasn't knee-deep in the details. But also, it can be a little bit confusing when you attend, let's say, you come here on a Sunday morning, and it's an Up Sunday, and maybe the sermon moved your soul that day, and you want to kind of continue, but the next week is an In Sunday, and so everybody splits up for the workshops, and you've learned some good stuff, though. You learned good stuff on the In Sunday, and then you come back the next Sunday, it's an Out Sunday, completely different focus. Oh, you learned good stuff then, too. But then the next time that you come back to the sermon, it's been a few weeks. The next time you come back to the In Sunday, which may have been really good, it's been almost a month. The next time you come to the Out, it's almost been a month. And so it's hard for people to build any kind of continuity in what God is actually doing. So we hear you on that. And we've talked about a lot of different models of how we could change this and rearrange it. And this is where we have landed as a team. As you know, there's a whole team that's built around this. We call it the retooling team. There's a whole team that helps. And in that team are the teachers, which are kind of like the ones I work with closest. And then we pull in staff to decisions, and we pull in elders to decisions as well. So this has had a lot of feedback on it. And where we've landed is that we would now follow a yearly rhythm as opposed to Up, In, Out, Rest happening on a monthly basis. It would happen on a yearly basis seasonally. So meaning that autumn would be up. The whole focus is on worshiping God. The whole focus of winter is in, which is our spiritual pursuit of God. The whole spring focus is out, which is loving the world outside our walls and tons of service opportunities. And then summer is rest, purposefully enjoying peace, rest, refreshment, as well as community. So what this looks like on a seasonal basis is that, and this has also been one of the things that we've heard a little bit from people, is that people don't want necessarily, people really like the equipping, but they don't necessarily want less preaching. Well, obviously we can't do all of it, but I do think that there does need to be a better balance between the two. And so what we are aiming for is that each season would begin with a sermon series. So let's say it's Up season in the fall. It would begin with a sermon series. We're not saying how long that sermon series is, because we're letting the theme and what God is speaking to my heart determine that. So it could be 3 weeks, it could be 5 weeks, we don't know. But there will be a sermon series that happens, and then right after the sermon series will be the workshops that are also based on that theme. And, some of you may be thinking, like, let's say summer when we're talking about rest. How in the world do you take so many workshops to talk about rest? Well, there's multi-aspects to all of these things. When we're talking about rest, we're talking about a lot. We're talking about the need to foster community in our homes, because Sabbath was always about that. It's about hosting. It's about hospitality. And so it's about setting up our homes as lighthouses in our communities. It's about learning. And when we talk about that, right, there's multi-facets to that one thing alone. How do you be a good friend? How do you have deeper conversations? How do you love people well? I mean, we can see this breaks off in so many areas, but it also goes to the core issue of our identity in Christ, because when we strip away all of our doing, it makes a lot of us very insecure. Like we define ourselves by doing. And when we strip that away, what are we left with? Well, now we're talking about our identity in Christ, and what does that look like? So just the idea of Sabbath alone and rest alone has so many different tentacles to it. And so does each of these things. And so, I mean, I will predict to you that over the next few years, you won't hear things repeated very much, regardless of the fact that we're focusing on these things. So the sermon series will set up the teaching, the workshops. And so our hope is that, the sermons move the soul, teaching equips, and actually learning how to live it out. As well, each season will have at least one or two focal points that are in addition to the Sunday morning that will be open for the whole church to participate in. Like when we're talking about Up, we would probably have a few worship nights with a lot of prayer stations set up and a long time of worship. And when we're talking about we're probably talking about some of the things that we used to do, our Saturday morning retreats, things that kind of help give space to practice some spiritual practices and disciplines. Of course, when we're talking about Out, we're talking about tons of opportunities to serve. But we will, if some of you may have concerns, we all have different bents. So some of you may be thinking, well, I really like the fact that we were serving in a nonprofit every single month. That was what we were trying to do, and now it sounds like we're changing that. Yes and no. We are going to really focus on the spring as the big time to serve, but what we're also going to be doing is pulling in nonprofit leaders. Those of you who happen to be a part of RCC that go all the way back to Encounter, which was the precursor to RCC, you know that this is how we used to do things. We used to pull in nonprofit leaders once a month that would talk to everybody that was there, to introduce their nonprofit, to talk about how people can get plugged in, just like a missions window, like a 10-minute thing. And then they would have their stuff set up, and you could interact with them and decide if you were going to serve. And so we're going to be continually exposing all of us to the world outside our walls, and there will be plenty of opportunities to serve as well. One other thing I need to mention, we will also still have the Rest Sunday on the fourth Sunday of every month. So even though we're talking about Up and Out Rest now being seasonal, still the fourth Sunday will always be rest because of two main things. As we start to pick up speed, we need to pick up all of our volunteer base again with all of the stuff that we're doing. We have a tremendous amount of people that volunteered, but those volunteers can get burned out quickly if we do not build in times of rest. As we've heard me preach about with Sabbath before, Sabbath is a biblical mandate. It's even though there's a whole thing to talk about that with Jesus, but it's biblical. It's in the Ten Commandments. It's crucial. And we can pay lip service to how important that is, or we can actually model it as a church and say that we believe that rest is so important that we are modeling it. And so we will not be gathering on the fourth Sunday starting in July. The church is not closed, but there's nobody here except for a few friends, some of our retired brothers and sisters that will be here to receive anybody that happens to be coming in for the first time. They will have breakfast with them. They will talk about who we are, about our rhythms, and an invite for the following week. Everybody else, you're still church. You don't cease being church because you're not in the building. And this is one of the reasons that we have to do this, to teach and to remind us that the church exists in all spaces, in all places, and it exists in your home. And so be church in your home. Be church in your home. Rest, enjoy it, but also open up your doors. Invite people, not only those that you already really like that are a part of the church family. I get why we'd want to do that. That's great. but also those that you don't know real well, and in particular, single people and widows and widowers. Invite them into your home, connect with them, serve meals, have people bring stuff, or decide if that's too much stress, go and meet at a lake or a park somewhere, or do whatever you want to do, but connect with the family of God. And if your family unit is very stressed because you hardly ever see one another, then don't do that. Take that Sunday just to love on one another and connect with one another. So that's still going to be a regular monthly rhythm because we believe in how important that really is. And so all of our ministries will be focused around this whole rhythm. Family ministries, for example, all of the entire curriculum is going to be based on these same rhythms of up, in, out, rest. And student ministries, as we get that ready to be started, which we have hopefully some announcements coming up about that very soon, about starting in the fall, will also be focused on these rhythms. And this will eventually affect all of the ministries that are part of RCC. So that basically something that I've wanted from the very beginning when RCC started, and we had for a short period of time, was moving all ministries in the same rhythms so that as families, as friends, we're all going through some very similar things together at the same time. So I'm excited about these changes. I think they will really simplify and help clarify what it is that we're going to be doing. This will not start now. So this starts in July, okay? July starts the summer, the rest. So there'll be a sermon series, and then there'll be workshops. They won't start now. So next week is still in. The week after that is still out. And then July will start the seasonal rhythms. I hope that that's clear because we're still in this season. We're at the tail end of the season. So, all right. If you have any questions about that, please don't hesitate to talk to me afterwards or send emails to me or office or elders at readingcitychurch.com.